Yeah.
You're talking about today's audience, the younger audience, and how most of their literacy is a visual literacy. We require students to attend events, so they have to attend a music event, which means you have to leave your house and go to another place to sit in the room. And quite frequently we'll get a question of, well, can I just rent the DVD? Or can't I just, they've got streaming video, why can't I watch that instead? And so if you were able to talk directly to, as you will be doing through this piece, a group of students that are from that particular experience, how would you explain to them what theater offers in terms of being in the space that they cannot get from the other media?
Well, I can start to explain it, I think, but I'm not sure that there's any real answer to what you just said except to experience it. Particularly in this theater in the round, we're moving in 3 dimensions, as indeed we move through life. We have backs, we have fronts, we have sides, whereas if you watch something on a screen, you're looking at a flat screen. We don't yet have all that well-developed 3D screen, though God help us when we get there. So one of the things is you're experiencing it in a, quote, more real way. The stage is a very poetic medium, however, whereas film tends to be a very literal medium. By that I mean that there's an expectation that an audience will bring certain things to add on to that experience. And we always know as actors, for example, that every audience is smarter about what we're doing out here than we are in a certain way. And here's what I mean by that. We can be very clever in rehearsal about trying to figure out the timing of a comedy line or getting our diction up or whatever's required or developing some comic business. But until you put it in front of an audience, you don't know if your intention is coming off as what works. It's by that common experience of laughing, paying attention, and being quiet, whatever that is, that we actors, when we're on stage, are informed by the audience. And that's what really makes the play happen, is that communication that is given to you by a group of people who collectively have more life experience, even if they're young, than we do. And they only know what they're seeing. They don't know the clever things we said in rehearsal. They only are witness at that moment, at that point in time, of something that will never happen that way again. So there's this fabulous uniqueness to each moment. And should be, although it's true it's not always, should be this wonderful communication. That's really why Norma named us Theater 3. Norma, my late wife, Norma Young, who was the real progenitor founder of this organization. She thought that the first person up is the playwright. And that's the person that got all honor. That the production was there to serve the playwright. The production is just all the things you mentioned, the design, as well as the actors and the directors. But the third leg of the tripod on which it stands is indeed the talent of the audience and what they feed back to that moment, that live moment where, in this case, we're actually all breathing the same air. We're all together at one point in time in a place that will never be. It's the thing that psychologists work for in terms of mental health, and that is being in the moment, not regretting the past or making up something for the future that might or might not be possible, but that healthy thing of being really totally alive in the moment. So you have a better crack at that sort of live feedback when you are live in an audience. And we're social creatures. We learn from each other. People sitting in this very place where we're sitting now are coming together, and there's always a conflict on stage. That's what drama's about, some sort of conflict. So where do we land on this issue as a group? Who are we pulling for on stage? What ideas attract us the most? What's the positive? What's the negative? What's the resolution of the conflict? We're working on that as a group, and that sets community standards. If you want to know what sets community standards, that's what does it, the community, coming together, being together, to have that experience. It's not that there's not a wonderful experience to be had alone in reading a book, or in fact, for that matter, alone in watching a DVD, but there's an add-on when you actually experience something live. It's a little bit like the difference between hearing something acoustically and hearing it, even though the sound might just really be excellent, hearing it amplified. It's a different oral experience. I know you're involved right now.
Yes.
With, scientifically it's different. Your body responds to it in its own special way. So there just frankly is no substitute for it.
So then do you see this thing that you have described as ultimately being an extension of the creative process?
Oh, absolutely. In every single second that's going on out here. We don't set shows in rehearsal in order to freeze them. We set a design on the actors for them to go out and fulfill and respond to. There's a good book on acting. There's a good teacher on acting by the name of Benedetti, and he defined being relaxed on stage, which is kind of funny word to use because you're sort of on your toes, right? But that quality of relaxation, he defined it as being available to the slightest stimulus. Oh, I thought that was a wonderful. To be disarmed enough to take in the slightest stimulus and let it affect you, because that's really living fully in the moment. And as I say, the people who do therapeutic psychology with people, that's what they're always working for, is to be really alive in the moment that you're given, which is a fraction of a moment in the point of the universe's time, but to really fulfill what that is. And live theater is a great way to do that. It's a terrific way to do that. And live music and live dance performances, the arts in general. Nothing. I was not prepared for the first time I saw Guernica, the painting by Picasso, and it was on my first visit to New York, and it was on loan at that time to the Museum of Modern Art, and I'd seen it in dozens of books, dozens and dozens of books. It brought me to my knees. I wasn't even being dramatic. I mean, it was like, oh my God, to actually see the thing for real. And know that this genius man stood there in front of it and worked it, and worked the paint. The scale is what really got me. You know, there aren't books as big as that painting.
Right.
You know, so I'd never realized it was this enormous piece, which still worked incredibly. I mean, it's almost the size of a billboard, for God's sake. It's huge. But there's nothing that really substitutes for the live experience of art, whether that's viewing an original piece of artwork, whether that's listening to music, whether that's seeing dance. I just saw a wonderful Titus performance. I'd forgotten how much I loved watching God's athletes. You know, Martha Graham called dancers God's athletes. I've always liked that phrase. You forget how really exhilarating it is to see wonderful modern dance like that. And it just, it brings you into full humanness.